alleged in court documents and statements made in court. In an effort to address escalating violence in Bridgeport, the FBI, ATF, U.S. Marshals, and Bridgeport Police are actively investigating multiple Bridgeport-based groups whose members are involved in narcotics trafficking, murder, and other acts of violence. The East End Gang began as a local street gang based in the East End of Bridgeport, but currently has members and associates who are either incarcerated or living throughout Bridgeport and surrounding towns. The indictment alleges that the East End Gang distributed heroin, crack cocaine, marijuana and Percocet pills, used and shared firearms, and committed murder and other acts of violence against rival gang members and other individuals. East End members celebrated their criminal conduct on social media websites such as Facebook and YouTube, and committed acts of intimidation, and made threats to deter potential witnesses to their crimes. The gang has been aligned with other groups, including the PARNUM Gang, the East Side Gang and 150, which is a geographic gang based on the west side of Bridgeport. These groups were aligned against rival organizations in Bridgeport, including the original North End, ONE, and the GHB HOTZ Gang. The Green Homes Boys, GHB HOTZ Gang, is a gang based in the Charles F. Green Homes housing complex in Bridgeport's North End. Since approximately 2017, GHB HOTZ members have been aligned with members of the original North End, ONE, a gang based in the Trumbull Gardens area of Bridgeport. These allied gang members are involved in narcotics trafficking and numerous violent acts, including murder. At about noon on August 10, 2014, Ryan Hernandez had been standing at the corner of Park Avenue and Olive Street when a dark-colored car pulled up. Video from a surveillance camera on a nearby store showed a man with a black shirt over his head get out of the car and confront Hernandez. Hernandez was pistol-whipped in the head. Afterward, he received a shot to the chest by the man. The assailant then got back into the car and it drove off. Police said shortly thereafter, they began getting numerous calls that Fab and Moo were responsible for the murder. Fabe Francis and Jamal Moo Hamilton were GHB boys, also referred to as Green Hollow Boys. Moo was considered the big homie and leader of the gang. Detectives then checked video surveillance from the Green Homes housing complex, the headquarters of the GHB boys, and found that one of the cameras had captured a person appearing to be Fab just before the shooting, wearing the same clothes as the shooter, and standing with another man wearing a black shirt. Cameras at the complex showed a youth returning in the getaway car minutes after the shooting. Allegedly, 21-year-old Hernandez was a member of the 150 gang, who were allied with the East End Gang. Khalil Diaz, 16 at the time, was the driver for this incident. On May 22, 2015, police responded to a report of shots fired to find a 19-year-old city man lying in the road at Park and Shelton Streets. The man, KJ, had been shot 5 times, twice in the buttocks, once in the back, once in the abdomen and once in the arm, police said. Allegedly, KJ was a member or associate of the 150 gang. Detectives asked who had shot him while he was in the ambulance truck. KJ gasped, Police said. They said he then flashed them a hand signal used by members of the Green Hollow or Green Boys gang. Detectives would wait until KJ recovered from surgery before trying to pry more information out of him about the shooting. KJ said he had been walking north on Park Street when he saw GHB member Andre Kirkland, aka Spuda, running toward him holding a chrome handgun. According to detectives, KJ and Spuda had gotten into a fight before, and allegedly, KJ beat him down. He figured this was Spuda's retaliation. One shot missed KJ, but the other 5 sent from the chrome handgun hit him. On the witness stand, KJ identified Kirkland as the man who shot him, telling the jury they had gone to school together. June 11, 2015, people were outside congregating in the Trumbull Gardens area, drinking, playing music and such. This is ONE gang territory. This day, Savani McNeil, 37, died in the barrage of bullets, and 8 others were shot. McNeil was found lying on his back between 2 parked cars with a gunshot wound to the head. In the shooting, 8 people, including McNeil, were shot while hanging out in the complex parking lot. The 9th victim, an elderly woman, was shot while in the shower in her second-floor apartment. The suspects fired more than 50 shots into the crowd and continued to shoot towards the complex while running away on foot. Jamal Moo Hamilton, 24, and Kevin Webb Bennett, 24, were arrested for the incident at the Trumbull Gardens housing project. They were both charged with 1 count of murder, 8 counts of assault in the first degree and weapons charges. Both suspects were already incarcerated on other charges, but bond for this crime was set at $1 million bond. Hamilton, who grew up in Trumbull Gardens, was arrested on drug charges on 4 separate dates in June, including the day after the fatal shooting. He also has 5 years remaining on probation from previous.
It was freezing in my house. We had our thermostat at 90 and it still said it was
Previous charges, which date back to 2008. Bennett also has a long criminal history, including convictions for aggravated assault and armed robbery in Georgia. Here in Connecticut, he had 7 years remaining of probation when he was hit with this murder charge. Bennett testified Hamilton told him he did the shooting because one of the victims, whom he didn't name, was responsible for previously shooting a friend of Hamilton's. McNeil, an innocent victim, had actually been responsible for helping people who lived in the project by giving them jobs at his construction company. In fact, Bennett testified McNeil had given him a job. Bennett testified Hamilton told him he did the shooting because one of the victims, whom he didn't name, was responsible for previously shooting a friend of Hamilton's. Miraculously, Hamilton ended up getting acquitted of the murder, but remained in custody on drug charges and probation violation. This is most likely before the alliance, because although Hamilton grew up in Trumbull Gardens, he repped GHB. By 2016, Fab and Khalil Diaz had beat the murder case involving Ryan Hernandez in 2014. They were found not guilty and were back on the streets. Fab's acquittal came 2 months prior, and he was present at the court when Khalil was acquitted as well. Many people were upset at the verdict due to the overwhelming evidence presented at trial. GHB and their rivals were in attendance at the court, including 150-member Tomlinson. On May 2016, 20-year-old Tomlinson had murder on his mind. Call was getting into a parked car in broad daylight when Tomlinson ran up and shot him 3 times. 3 police detectives were in the area at the time and ran to the scene. They saw Tomlinson attempt to get low. They chased him about 50 feet from the murder scene before apprehending him. Along the pursuit, a discarded sweatshirt, a knitted hat and the murder weapon had been recovered. DNA recovered from the hat proved to be Tomlinson's. After this shooting, a series of deadly shooting would follow, as this added the fuel to the fire. The GHB gang renamed their turf to Khaland in honor of Khalil, and swore to Khar other than God. Khalil was 18 years old and registered at Harding High School at the time of his death. Tomlinson was eventually sentenced to 63 years in prison. December 23, 2017. Just 2 days before Christmas, around 10:30 p.m., 22-year-old Collie Davis was standing outside the Maple Deli mini market at Kossuth and Maple Streets when 2 gunshots rang out. Face down, in a pool of blood, Davis was pronounced dead. He had been standing in front of the store with a small group of people when the shooter approached on foot and opened fire. Davis fled into the store, where he collapsed, police said. Allegedly, Davis was a member of the East End gang. Surveillance video from the market showed a man wearing a black hooded sweatshirt and red and black sneakers, firing shots as bystanders ran for cover. Through their investigation, police said they identified Gerard Hamilton as the shooter. Gerard Sonny Stacks Hamilton is the younger brother of gang leader, Moo Moo, who was serving a 13-year bid for heroin at this time. The younger Hamilton, who has a skull tattoo on the back of his right hand, showed no emotion as Superior Court Judge Kevin Doyle ordered him held in lieu of $1 million on charges of murder with a firearm, unlawful discharge of a firearm, having a pistol without a permit and reckless endangerment. January 30, 2018. Eric Hurd, a.k.a. Fetty, was a member and associate of the GHB gang, was shot in the head on Price Street near Palisades Avenue. Officers responded to reports of a shooting and found Hurd, who lived on Price Street, laying in the road. Allegedly, East End gang member Keyshawn Donald was the shooter. The shooting happened around 5:30 p.m. in the city's Mill Hill section. Investigators say 19-year-old Eric Hurd was walking from his family's house to buy food when he was ambushed by Donald. Police initially reported that Hurd died after being shot. His family said he was life support at Bridgeport Hospital. Sadly, doctors said Hurd has no hope for recovery. On February 9th, a funeral was held for Hurt on Central Avenue. Task force members received intel that tensions were high. It was possible that ONE Gang and GHB, the North End gangs, might be looking to retaliate or add fuel to this fire. The task force conducted surveillance, and a heavy police presence was assigned to the area of the funeral to deter any violent activity. One officer, in an unmarked Bridgeport police vehicle, saw a car approach the area before driving away at a higher rate of speed. The driver of the car, later identified as 18-year-old Deon Jones of Stratford, is a known North End gang member. Officers turned their lights and sirens on while in pursuit of the vehicle. Jones ignored the police and continued to drive throughout several city streets, eventually making his way to Interstate 95 and Route 25. Once they hit the highway, Jones got low on the boys, and the police lost sight of him. Dispatch alerted other officers to be on the lookout for the car. A bystander called police headquarters and said that a car had crashed on Sampson Street. They also stated that two males fled from the car on foot. The passenger, who was later found in the backyard of a residence on Sampson Street, told police he asked Jones to pull over and let him out when he saw police were trying to pull him over. Police released him at the scene and he did not face any charges. As Jones ran, he threw away some weed and the keys to the whip. Later, police would discover the car was stolen from Larkspur Drive in Trumbull. Officers saw Jones was carrying a silver item in his right hand that, police said, was initially believed to have been a firearm. Two officers had their department issued firearms drawn as they attempted to apprehend Jones. When Jones ignored verbal commands to stop and to show his hands, one officer used his department-issued taser, which hit shrubbery instead of Jones. After the officer unsuccessfully used his taser, Jones threw his hands in the air, the incident report said. At that point, officers said, they saw Jones had been holding a silver iPhone, not a gun. Officers were able to detain Jones without further incident. Jones was charged with possession of less than half an ounce of marijuana, engaging police in a pursuit, reckless driving, operating a motor vehicle under suspension, first-degree larceny, interfering with police and risk of injury. His bond was set at $30,000. On February 7, 2018, Bennigan and Blackwell shot and attempted to kill MJ, a member or associate of the 150 gang. Prosecutors at Bennigan also appeared in YouTube videos and in social media posts where guns were present, allegedly promoting the gang. Law enforcement officers made controlled buys of narcotics from Bennigan during the investigation. Authorities found 2 guns and crack cocaine during a court-authorized search of Bennigan's home on March 13, 2020. February 27, 2018. Around 9:50 p.m., officers responded to the area of Stratford and Central Avenues for a report of shots fired. One officer, at 9:52 p.m., said she had a party shot at the Sunshine Deli, 1306 Stratford Avenue. The victim suffered a non-life-threatening gunshot to the buttocks, dispatch reports indicated. Another officer at the scene at the deli said there were multiple shots fired in the store. He said there were shell casings from at least 3 different guns in the store and all over the street outside. 3 different types of ammunition was found at the scene. At 10:02 p.m., St. Vincent's Medical Center alerted police to a gunshot wound victim at their emergency department. Dispatch reported the victim, who was shot in the stomach, was dropped off by a private vehicle that left the scene. At 10:26 p.m., 2 additional gunshot wound victims showed up at Bridgeport Hospital. These 2 victims were shot on Stratford Avenue, the police dispatcher said. On August 8, 2018, Jalen Wilson, also known as J. 22 and other ONE members stole a white Jeep Grand Cherokee in Newburgh, New York, and drove it back to Bridgeport. In the following days, Wilson conspired to use the car to kill East End gang members who he had learned through social media were at a deli on Stratford Avenue in Bridgeport. Although that plan fell through, in the early morning hours of August 13, 2018, ONE members drove the stolen Jeep to Union Avenue in Bridgeport, where they shot and killed Len Smith, 25, who they mistook for a rival East End group member, and shot and seriously wounded Smith's female companion, both of whom were seated in a parked car. After the shooting, ONE members transported the Jeep to Indian Wells State Park in Shelton, where they burned the vehicle in an effort to destroy evidence of the murder. June 6, 2018. A Waterbury man and Bridgeport teen led police on a multi-town chase that resulted in a crash and multiple charges and included possession of a pistol without a permit and possession of high-capacity magazines, police say. At around 6:45 p.m. on Monday, state police notified Bridgeport and Newtown police that they were in pursuit of a white Honda. The state cops lost sight of the vehicle in Newtown, but picked up the chase again around 7:10 p.m. and pursued the Honda into Waterbury. There they lost track of it one more time, before it crashed on Charles Street. The driver, Kenneth Jones, 32, of Waterbury, and his passenger, ONE Joshua Gilbert, fled on foot, but were located by Waterbury police and state police employing a K-9 unit, police said. While attempting to evade capture, Jones and Gilbert kicked in the door of a residence while it was occupied. Police were alerted to their presence there, and the pair was taken into custody. On October 4, 2018, Kirkland and Bennigan shot and attempted to kill MS, a member or associate of the East End Gang. On March 5, 2019, an East End Gang member had murder on his mind. A suspect in the March fatal shooting of a 34-year-old man was captured following a foot chase with police. Eric Heavyweight Champ Hayes, 22, a YouTube rapper who flashes guns in his videos, was being held in lieu of $300,000 bond. Police said Hayes is a suspect in the March 5 shooting death of Jarrell Gatewood. Gatewood was found lying in the street at the intersection of Connecticut Avenue and 4th Street. He had been shot in the chest. Police said they have been searching for Hayes, who they consider a threat to the community. He has not yet been charged in the homicide. On Wednesday night, members of the State Police Gang Unit and the Bridgeport Police Department's Tactical Narcotics team were patrolling Stratford Avenue when police said they spotted Hayes walking with 4 other men. As Police Sergeant Jason Amato approached the group, police said Hayes took off running. Police said Amato and other officers gave chase and Hayes leaped over fences as he ran through backyards. At one point, police said Hayes removed a gun from his waistband and heaved it into a yard as he ran. They said the gun was later recovered and found to be a loaded .45 caliber handgun. Police said Hayes began yelling to residents as he ran, trying to get them to deter the chasing officers. The pursuing officers lost sight of Hayes, and a police dog was brought in to track him, police said. With the aid of the dog, police said they later found Hayes hiding on a porch. Police said Hayes had a small amount of marijuana and 3 oxycodone pills. After Hayes was taken into custody, officers called in for additional units for crowd control. Dispatch reports indicated the officers said there was a crowd of 30 to 40 people. On July 4, 2019, Independence Day, Richard McDonald, 22, was shot in the head near the back of Building 4 in Green Homes. McDonald, who had recently been released from prison on drug charges, was the city's 10th homicide of the year. McDonald was sentenced to 4 years in prison after being busted for selling drugs in April 2016, court records show. On Thursday, police arrested 20-year-old Charles Anthony Bonilla in connection to the murder. He was an East End Gang member. On July 12, 2019, Trayvon Jones, also known as Budda, and Tyrone Moore, also known as Ty Ralph Lauren, shot and killed Sean Warren, also known as Cujo. Cujo was a member and associate of the ONE gang. Warren was fatally shot 6 days before what would have been his 18th birthday. He died at Bridgeport Hospital in the early morning hours of Saturday, after he was shot in the chest on a late Friday night in the area of Horace Street and York Avenue. Warren was the city's 11th homicide of 2019, and the youngest to be killed in Bridgeport that year. A couple of days after the shooting, investigators interviewed a lot of people, and were looking at video footage from the area. Officers responded to the Horace Street and York Avenue area after 11 p.m. for a report of a person shot. Allegedly, there had been 2 large parties in the area at the time of the shooting. On September 15, 2019, Marquis Israel, aka Garf, a member of the ONE gang, was in a restaurant at 1653 Barnum Avenue in the east end of Bridgeport. Trayvon Wright, also known as Trey, had the drop and tried to kill Israel. Israel was shot, but he survived. On October 17, 2019, East End member Jones shot and attempted to kill Joshua Gilbert, who we spoke about earlier. On December 8, 2019, Trey was involved with another shooting. He attempted to kill Arvin Smith, aka Arv Barkley, an associate of the ONE gang. December 8, 2019. A shooting was reported about 6:13 p.m. near the area of 588 Newfield Avenue. Police found 18-year-old Ty Quest Moore in a driveway, suffering from multiple gunshot wounds to the torso and extremities, Fitzgerald said. He only lived a few blocks away. Moore was taken to Bridgeport Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Allegedly, North End's T.S. Warren was one of the people responsible for the shooting death of Ty Quest Moore. The next day, detectives tied 4 loaded pistols found inside an SUV parked outside a city nightclub to suspected gang members from Bridgeport, one of whom was a person of interest in a homicide in his native city. Joshua or Heavy Gilbert, 18, of Bridgeport, was one of several members of the one gang who were charged after a months-long investigation following the discovery of a Jeep Cherokee in the parking lot of the Van Gogh nightclub on Freight Street in October. Police say they prevented the Jeep from leaving the nightclub's parking after a disturbance inside the building in the early morning on October 6. Police watched surveillance footage from the club, saying that Gilbert was one of 4 men seen reaching inside the SUV before they arrived, according to Gilbert's arrest warrant. Inside the vehicle, police say they found 4 loaded handguns, including a .40 caliber Glock that was ready to fire and held 26 bullets in its ammo magazine. 3 of the guns were found underneath the front seats, and police later discovered that one, a Smith & Wesson, had been reported stolen by its owner in Wallingford. Surveillance footage from earlier in the night showed Gilbert and 3 other Bridgeport men, Jose Gizel Martinez, 26, Zaire Dedrick, 18, and 26-year-old Rasheen Bruce, climbing from the Jeep after it pulled into the parking lot, then walking to the club's front entrance, according to police. That same footage showed the men storing items in the Jeep during the night, according to police. Later in the night, a disturbance occurred inside the club, which led the group of men to run out of the building, according to police. Surveillance footage captured Gilbert near the Jeep, but showed him backing away from it as police arrived, according to police. After finding the guns, city police contacted the gang task force in Bridgeport, who were familiar with the group, according to Gilbert's arrest warrant. By then, Gilbert had been named as a person of interest in a homicide and multiple shootings in Bridgeport, his warrant shows. The nature of Gilbert's involvement in that homicide, or when it and where it occurred, was not disclosed in Gilbert's warrant. The one gang, which stands for only North End, frequent the north end of Bridgeport near a housing project, according to police. Gilbert, Martinez, Dedrick, and Bruce were arrested in recent days in connection with the guns, and were charged with illegal possession of a weapon in a motor vehicle, as well as several other gun-related crimes. They were held on $100,000 bonds, and are due in Waterbury Superior Court in January. On January 26, 2020, an 18-year-old boy was killed, and a 21-year-old man was injured during a shooting on Highland Avenue in Bridgeport. Allegedly, both members were associates of the GHB HOTZ gang. The incident happened Sunday outside the Junco No. 2 grocery store around 5:37 p.m. Police say they responded to Highland Avenue after ShotSpotter alerted them of a shooting in the area. Myricky Kenyon, 18, of Bridgeport, was found with at least 1 gunshot wound on the 20th block of Highland Avenue. Kenyon was transported to St. Vincent's Medical Center, where he later died. Police say a 21-year-old man who was with Kenyon was also shot in the chest and leg. They say he ran across the street to the Green Homes complex and collapsed outside Building 2. He was transported to Bridgeport Hospital, where he underwent surgery and was expected to be okay. Detectives say they attempted to speak with him, but his father refused to allow police to talk to him. Allegedly, East End gang member, Trey, was responsible for the murder. A day later, on January 27, 2020, Gaines, Calderon, Blackwell, Jones, Israel and Warren planned to retaliate against Trey and members of the East End gang. At 12:11 p.m., Bridgeport police responded to the area of 172 Golden Hill Street in Bridgeport after a ShotSpotter activation detected approximately 20 shots being fired in front of the state courthouse located there. Upon arrival, investigators discovered that 4 victims, Trevin Wright, Khalil Hurd, Jaffer Ali, Jaheim Warren, had been shot while sitting inside a black Chevrolet Impala. Wright was shot in the side of his chest and has been left paralyzed. Hurd sustained multiple gunshot wounds to his back, shoulder and wrist. Ali was grazed in the head and shot in the left thumb, and Warren was grazed in the ribs. The victim's vehicle had approximately 23 entry bullet holes in the driver's side and windshield area. Further, on March 25, 2020, T.S. Warren, also known as Loose Crew 21, and an accomplice, stole a car that was in front of the Citgo 6M service station and Quick Mart, located at 2000 Barnum Avenue in Stratford. Warren was an OME gang member. During the theft, they dragged the car's driver, who was trying to stop the theft and was hanging onto the car, several hundred yards before he let go. Warren and an accomplice then engaged in a carjacking involving a Toyota Corolla in Bridgeport, holding the owner at gunpoint and ultimately driving away in the car. Minutes later, Warren and an accomplice committed a gunpoint robbery of the Citgo in Stratford, taking cash from the store and a cell phone from a store employee. Stratford police arrested Warren later that night after he crashed another stolen car he was driving on an I-95 on-ramp, and then ran from police. Warren pleaded guilty to one count of conspiracy to engage in a pattern of racketeering activity. On June 25, 2020, Dangerfield and J.W., an East End associate who is now deceased, and another individual, went on a drill. Tyler Ballew was released from prison just weeks before, after serving nearly 2 years of an 8-year sentence on multiple drug convictions from 2018. He was freed early because of the COVID-19 pandemic, police said. At 7:55 p.m., a Thursday night, police responded to a shooting in front of 527 Huntington Road. When they arrived, they found that 4 people had bullet wounds. Ballew was shot in the head and was taken by medics to Bridgeport Hospital, where he was pronounced dead, Fitzgerald said. 2 females and another male were shot while sitting in a vehicle. They sustained none life-threatening injuries. The second male victim sustained a graze wound to the head, a female victim sustained a graze wound to the head, and the second female victim sustained a gunshot wound to the abdomen. None of them were willing to cooperate with police. Detectives believe all of the victims were intended targets. March 30, 2021. 3 people have been arrested after gunshots in the city led to a pursuit that spanned from Stratford to Norwalk and back up Interstate 95. Devin Shane Diaz, 22, was charged with weapon in a motor vehicle, carrying a pistol without a permit, illegal use of a firearm, interfering resisting arrest, reckless driving, and engaging police in a pursuit. Joshua Gilbert, 19, and Jod Zaire Thomas, 23, were each charged with weapon in a motor vehicle, carrying a pistol without a permit, illegal use of a firearm, and interfering resisting arrest. They each had bonds set at $30,000. Officers tried to get the driver to pull over, but a pursuit began. He said the pursuit made its way onto Interstate 95 and spanned from Stratford to Norwalk. State troopers and police from nearby towns assisted along the way. June 18, 2021. A local man was wounded after reportedly being caught in a gang-related shooting involving his teenage son, police said. Police arrested one of the shooters, an alleged member of the Green Hollow Boys gang. Jadarius Jackson, 20, of Norman Street, was charged with first-degree assault, illegally firing a firearm, conspiracy to commit first-degree assault, risk of injury to a child, reckless endangerment, and possession of a firearm without a permit. Jackson, who was arrested last December in New Haven on gun charges, was served with a new arrest warrant at the Golden Hill Street Courthouse. During Jackson's arraignment Friday afternoon, Assistant State's Attorney Felicia Valentino urged Superior Court Judge Kevin Boyle to set a high bond. Jackson's lawyer, Assistant Public Defender Mike Paris, argued that his client is already being held on a high bond for the New Haven case. The judge agreed with the prosecutor and ordered Jackson held in lieu of $300,000 bond. He continued the case to July 20. Shortly after noon on November 4, 2020, police said a local man was walking along State Street with his 3 children when he heard gunshots and realized he had been shot in the left hand. Police said witnesses told officers they had seen 2 men, wearing black hoodies, fleeing the scene after the shooting. The victim was taken to Bridgeport Hospital for the hand wound. Police said surveillance video in the area showed 2 men in hoodies fleeing to a dark-colored Hyundai sedan. They said witnesses identified the owner of the car as a member of the Green Hollow Boys, a gang operating out of the Green Homes housing project. Police said they checked video surveillance of the housing project and spotted Jackson walking from the car parked in a parking lot at the project. Police said they then checked surveillance video from November 4, 2020 and saw Jackson and 3 other men get into the Hyundai. Other video surveillance tracked the car as it drove to the area of State Street, passing the shooting victim and his family, before parking a short distance away, police said. Video then showed 2 men in dark hoodies leave the Hyundai and fire guns in the direction of the victim and his family, police said. They then fled in the Hyundai. Police said they subsequently arrested a juvenile male who they alleged to have taken part in the shooting. Police said the juvenile told them that the victim's teenage son had actually been the target. The juvenile told them the teen had previously made disparaging remarks about the cousin of the juvenile who had been murdered in January 2020, police said. Police said they subsequently recovered a .40 caliber handgun from the juvenile's home that had been used in the shooting. December 20th, 2020. Bridgeport police identified 2 people who were shot and killed at a sports bar in CT. Police said Jaheim Warren, 19, and Andrew Stevenson, 24, was likely shot as the result of an ongoing dispute. Warren was an East End gang member. 2 others were injured in the shooting. Police said the surviving 2 victims do not appear to be intended targets in the incident. Police said shots were fired at Manga Sports Bar on Connecticut Avenue shortly before 1 a.m. when officers arrived. They said they found 3 gunshot victims who were transported by paramedics to Bridgeport Hospital. A 4th gunshot victim arrived at Bridgeport Hospital by a private vehicle, they added. According to police, a 19-year-old man and a 24-year-old man were both pronounced dead at the hospital. Their identities have not been released. Authorities said a 26-year-old man sustained serious injuries from gunshot wounds, but is expected to survive, and a 21-year-old man sustained non-life-threatening gunshot injuries. Officers who initially responded to the scene were met by a large uncooperative crowd, police said. Assistance was called in from Stratford Police and the Connecticut State Police to help with crowd control at the crime scene and at Bridgeport Hospital, they added. Police said on Monday that Manga Sports Bar does not have a valid license to sell alcohol or to do business as a bar. Police are now investigating who owns the bar and why it was open. Warren was also one of the East End members who got shot in that black Impala by the courthouse. Police said they are seeking 2 other men who were involved in the shooting. As we all know, drug trafficking in our communities, along with the gun and physical violence that often accompanies it, is a serious threat to our families and communities, said D. Special Agent in Charge Boyle. These crimes rob the neighborhoods of safety and hold law-abiding citizens of Connecticut hostage to drug-fueled lawlessness. This is unacceptable and will